Hi, Kyle, the Anger Archaeologist. Today we're talking about the Hongshan, a Neolithic society in northeastern China, one of the first to undergo changes and obtain social and economic complexity around the 6th millennium BCE. Now, although not related directly to Han Chinese people today, rather think of them as an ancestral people whose descendants probably make up not only Han Chinese, also Mongolian, Korean, possibly Tungus people of Siberia. Their name literally means red mountain because of the red rocks in the area were deposited in the Permian period, characterized by red, crimson, dark purple, gravel color. The Hongshan were just one of many Neolithic societies in the region, Zone 1 on the map, that underwent changes. Beginning around 6000 BCE, we're looking more at the later period, around 4500, 3000 BC, northeastern China, present day, the Liao River Basin, western Liaoning province, also encompassing parts of Inner Mongolia. The Hongshan realm encompassed indeed a variety of different ecologies, as the site distribution map for known Hongshan archaeological sites shows us here. The Hongshan ecologies are diverse from mountain ranges, river deltas, mountainous valleys, embankments, floodplains, arid desert regions. But most of the sites of the Hongshan are located in the river valleys at a low elevation. Now, the Hongshan people, or the Red Mountain people, are named after the Hongshan Ho, a site in the Xifang district in northeastern China, which lent its name to the people identified with this culture, an established archaeological tradition. We don't know what they actually call themselves, sadly. The Hongshan represent an interesting case study into archaeological inequality, namely how members of its society live with different levels of access to such social constructs as prestige, power, and also with different access to tangible things like wealth, food, which usually corresponds to lifestyle differences along an elite commoner power spectrum. But we can see the Hongshan may represent an interesting exception to our traditional understandings of inequality in society. We're going to be looking at data from two different locations. So we're going to be looking at excavations of 27 elite burials at Niuheliang site. This is in the Hongshan core zone. It's differentiated by increased monumentality, more elite, people were living closer together, possibly higher populations. And two, we're looking at residential data from what's considered a peripheral community in the Xifang district. That's a community culturally related to Niuheliang, but spatially far away, composed of possibly smaller, politically independent communities. This spectrum of core and peripheral study is a common thread in archaeology and anthropology writ large, the overall concept being a central force or political center exerted a form of control, either coercive through military force or soft power through social obligation, found in religion or prestige-generating activities, which usually we think of as kingship obligations to family, but can also be expanded to a supra-kin level where whole families are pledged to another in a kind of organization that's said to be like a chiefdom, a term usually applied to the Hongshan themselves. This is a faraway image of Niuheliang Mountain, the mountain on which the Hongshan burials are located. The top of a mountain being a sacred place is something characteristic of pre-dynastic, dynastic Chinese societies, and this site is one of the most important UNESCO World Heritage Sites in the world. The Niuheliang site began around the 3rd millennium BCE, so in the later stages of the Hongshan culture, was a multi-local, multi-function site, encompassing stone platform graves, as we've seen, but also a goddess temple and possible sacrificial altar area. So the series of earthen mounds with piled stone cairns and in between the hilltops of Niuheliang Mountains, there's also aside from the numerous elite burials with jade offerings, an altar platform, so our stone enclosure behind a goddess area, so a 40,000 meters squared with 3 altars area, a large gathering place. And the altars had red limestone imported, used to highlight the areas. So this is an important ritualistic place where people would gather, engage in ritualistic activities, possibly associated with femininity somehow. We're not sure. That's the mask you're seeing. And the elite burials, they show us 3 different pottery typologies, so 3 phases of the Hongshan. And this the pottery found here indicate that the Niuheliang was around the third phase of the Hongshan. So that's how we've kind of seen the time frame of the area. Uh, but there is a dispositional profile, so those earlier and later tomb building phases. But the site itself goes back to the later period in the Hongshan, based on the pottery typologies found there. Aside from the Hongshan elite burials in the Niuheliang, more generally, their material culture indicators are the beautifully carved jade objects, the red painted or Z-striped cylinder ceramics used as votive offerings in near elite tombs at Niuheliang, but not within the tombs themselves, interestingly, and certain Hongshan multiform stone tools. In terms of foodstuffs, so plant and animal remains, analysis indicates they had what's known as a mixed economy, so farming, hunting, gathering, millet cultivation, wild food, vegetables gathering, pig husbandry, and deer hunting. This goes well with the vast, ecologically diverse Hongshan world. The Hongshan, certainly by the later period, were a Neolithic peoples, so they lived in small, mostly short-term dwellings. Their houses were partially sunken-in dwellings, of which only the surface outlines remain today. Regional surveys from Xifang, Lower Bang River, Dongshan Sui indicate that these communities were grouped into clusters across 2 to 8 kilometer squared areas. The houses themselves were semi-subterranean, circular or square-shaped, timber frames, daubed walls, approximately 20 to 30 meters squared, with only a few structures reaching up to 100 meters squared. Community population spread across these communities was thought to be around between 500 and 1,000 people. This is the Xifang region population density visual representation. So the tall peaks represent the larger communities that captured, the small communities, larger communities, several hundred people, small is just a few households. Population density was about 5 to 10 people per kilometer squared. This is about 3,000 years after they began living sedentary lives, around 6,500 BCE, so around the year 3000 BCE in the Xifang region. So let's first take a look at the Hongshan stone coffin tombs. Of the 90 discovered in 2013, 70 burials were identified as contemporary with the use of Niuheliang complex. Archaeologists Hai Zhang, Andrew Bavin, and Dashun Guo 2013 argued the Niuheliang complex was constructed and used in the later era of the Hongshan. It can be said that the complex's construction embodies the changed social dynamics of the Hongshan society. Now, Barrow 1 region is one of the Niuheliang site. The Liaoning Provincial Institute of Cultural Relics and Archaeology conducted excavations of 25 of the 27 burials at Barrow 1 of the Niuheliang complex. As of 2013, this represents 30% of the known Hongshan burials, so this is pretty significant. We can say that those selected for burial here definitely represented a form of elitehood possessed by the dead here. However, the burials do show a variety in shape, arrangement, structure of the tombs and bodies interred, and a variety of grave goods. All of these are important variables in the study of graves and archaeology, and the study of inequality and hierarchy. So, the primary burial was known as the body was placed and left here first. Now, the majority of the complete skeletons lie in a supine extended position or face up lying down. And then these appear to have formed an elite class of the burials. So this is tomb M19, an example of a flexed burial, but not really a true flexed burial. It was several individuals that were heaped together, and one individual or the primary skeleton of the group kind of looks like in a fetal position. So it's in a nice sort of coffin, definitely, but it's of lower quality than the other, definitely less effort than the other individual burials that we see. So possibly lower respect for the dead, but we don't know the culture, so it's probably still an honor to be buried here. But it's definitely a lower effort tomb compared to the others. So the stone coffin was disturbed, a wall was missing, ceiling had collapsed, not surprising how old it is, but the whole coffin measures about a meter. Now, its interior was filled with black earth. There were some red clay pot shards there. So this is known actually as an exception to the area. So it's a secondary burial with human bones are heaped randomly in the east without any grave goods. M17 is another one of the lower quality tombs. It's actually just a decapitated head with a male head with a human palm turned up. And also, it has a grave good of a humanistic jade pendant. Tombs M21, 24, and 26 listed here in order. Example of the elite tombs, especially M21. The double tomb burial, only a small amount of grave goods was found there, surprisingly. But definitely M21, M26, M24. They represent the elite of society, most likely. In addition to the grave goods were the beautifully carved jade objects, jewelry, pendants, animalistic, sort of abstract, combining human and animal motifs, also designs of the mountain itself, thought to be influencing the designs. There were also disarticulated skeleton pit burials found at the site from later times, indicating possibly a breakdown of society. But the spiral cylinder jars, I thought that since they were not found within the tomb, just around the area, they could somehow represent souls of the deceased or some sort of votive offering, a practice of some sort of ritual of the Hongshan. We don't really know, but they're not found within the tombs themselves. Interesting. Now, switching to the residential household data from Xifeng region, specifically the Fushanzhuang residential data, but also I wanted to include just a picture of the Naztazi stone artifact distribution in another peripheral community. But focusing on Fushanzhuang, so 22,000 artifacts were recovered, 17,000 sherds, 5,000 stone flakes, middens were also recovered. And so they made a map about the distribution of artifacts at the household data, and the implications are pretty significant. So there's signs of craft specialization, but no material evidence for rank. So the craft specialists of the different, so whether they're associated more with farming or tool production, initial tool production, and tool finishing, there's no indication that these people had greater access to food or wealth, or the houses were the same size, so they didn't have larger residences. There was, however, symbolic pottery found in one house, or select houses, so indicating possibly some individuals had a greater access to some sort of spiritual prestige. But there's no evidence of traditional economic inequality from the household data. Now, there's definite need to establish temporal relationships to see what's contemporary with what, but I thought that this was pretty significant. Just an interesting glimpse into possibly, a very different society from our own that had a very different form of obtaining wealth and prestige. And we have these great elite burials, at least from the later Hongshan. We would expect to see more traditional wealth inequality at a household level. However, that's not always the case, and this is an interesting case study, possibly into inequality of archaeology in a chiefdom type society that we don't really fully understand yet. However, this was just in my presentation of data from the mid to late 2010s. I'm just going to end with some questions that I think need to be investigated about the topic as presented here. But if there's things that I've missed, or if there's aspects that you think, new data, for instance, that you're aware of, please let me know in the comments, or feel free to email me. Thank you for listening, Kyle, the Archaeologist. Take care.